and transferred to the earth and be stationed in Jerusalem. But here it's referring to outer space. And Satan and his demons do not prevail. It says in verse 9, and the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, many other names I might add, which deceives the whole world. And he was cast out unto the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. There's coming a day. At the present time, Satan is given the opportunity to use the atmosphere or heaven as like a superhighway. Right now, he's free to go anywhere. But there will come a time when Satan will be restricted. In fact, we're told in some later chapters of the book of Revelation, there will come a time when Satan will be put into a spiritual prison somewhere here on the earth. I don't know where that is, but I have speculated that it very well might be underneath in the catacombs of Rome. What a perfect place for Satan to hang out in. Satan and his demons. Again, I can't prove that. That's speculation on my part. I do want you to know that. But it says there just as clear as can be that Satan deceives the whole world. So, the doctrines of false churches, from where do they come? Satan. Satan is delighted that you go to church on Sunday. Did you know that, Don? He's applauding them. Oh, way to go. Because as long as you're going to church on Sunday, you don't know the truth about the Sabbath. And if you don't know about the Sabbath, you don't know about the biblical holy days.
Or you don't care.
Or you don't care. It's not important to you. I want to get back to Charlie again. For some time now, I don't know how long, months or a year, I think I mentioned this last week, I found out through watching my computer that Charlie, here of a later date, had become interested in keeping the seventh-day Jewish-style Sabbath, Friday evening to Saturday evening, Friday sunset to Saturday sunset. But he did it just in a family way. He was at home with his family. His phones were turned off. Charlie has mentioned on videos that I've seen that he was sort of addicted to his phone, taking phone calls, receiving text, sending texts. But he said that when Friday night came, he put his phone, turned it off, put it in a drawer, and didn't touch it again until Saturday evening. I wonder what would have happened. Now, he would get up the next morning and go to his Pentecostal-style church. But I wonder what would have happened had Charlie stayed alive. Would there have been a time when Charlie would have said, going to church on Sunday is incorrect? And Charlie was very bold. If he believed something, he did not hesitate saying it. That would really have confused people. I don't know what would have happened. Maybe his whole empire would have blown up over that. Because you see, did I ever tell you this, Don? I don't know that I have. A few years ago, 7, 8, 9, a fellow sports official who's a likable person, I'll just call him Brian, he invited me to come to some of his church events to sing. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Well, and one time he invited me. They had I forget what they called it. It was a moment, an event where a homecoming, that's what he called it, where maybe people who hadn't attended the church for a while were sought out and invited to come back to church for that service.
Like the Gaithers had
Yes.
homecomings.
Yeah. And I was invited to be the singer.
Ooh.
And it gave me a chance to sing in public. I didn't have that many opportunities, and I like Brian. So I went. And on that day, they invited a retired preacher to come back to preach.
Uh-huh.
It wasn't Brian, it's this older man. Brian must have told him that I was a Sabbath keeper.
Oh.
So guess what the sermon was about?
Sunday.
Yeah. The whole sermon was directed towards me.
Trying to win you over, Mike.
Oh, well, he wasn't very nice about it, to tell you the truth. And I thought, isn't that amazing? They're desperately trying to convert me.
So did he find any references in the Bible claiming the first day of the week?
No, it's just blah, 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 blah. And I sat in my chair. And Bud and Alice were in the crowd.
That's right, they did go to that.
Yes, they did. And in fact, we sat together, and I leaned over one time to Alice, and I said, I think I'm being preached at. Now, was I offended? No.
No.
I don't let stuff like that bother me. Are you going somewhere, Don?
I'm going to deliver something to your restroom.
Oh, he's making a delivery. I had to tease him. I could have avoided that, but I just wanted to tease him. I'm going to ask all of you to, and I may have mentioned this last week. If I didn't, I want to make sure I mention it. And if I did mention it, it's worth mentioning again. I want to ask you to go back to the book of James, back near the back. The book of Hebrews and the book of James. I think I'm getting close. 1 John, 1 Peter. It should be just around the corner. Went to Hebrews. There's James. Now, how can I set this up to explain it? Well, this probably is the best way. Throughout a number of text conversations and conversations in person, Gary became extremely aggressive with me. Now, Gary is a member of a church in this area. He's very proud of that. He's very dedicated to that. I think there's, I have something written down. Let me put my glasses on. In Jeremiah 7, verse 4, you don't have to turn there. I just want to make a quick reference to it. Jeremiah observed there were people that when it came to God, all they wanted to talk about was the temple. Now, the Jewish people at the time of Jeremiah they did not possess God's Spirit. And so they had a very, very limited understanding of the truth of God. So, Don, which is easier to worship? Something that you can see and maybe touch, or something that you cannot see?
Something you can see and touch.
Yeah. I mean, you can see it.
Computer, TV, a car.
But
Could be an idol.
But these people were enamored with the temple. And Jeremiah is basically, I think, mocking them when he says, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. The people would talk about the temple of the Lord, but they wouldn't really talk about God. Well, has anything changed? People want to talk about their church or their pastor, or maybe the friends they have there at church. And I understand that. But they never get around to actually obeying God. As Jesus said, Luke, was that 6:46 correct?
6:46. I got it right here somewhere.
I
Okay. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say?
Yeah. Luke 6:46. Why do you call me Lord, Lord? Why do you say I'm God, and yet you do not do what I say? Well, there's millions of people. You think about the number of people down who wear crosses around their neck.
Oh, yeah. Some of them are pretty good sized ones.
Yeah. And they think, well, I'm a Christian. You see, you can look at my cross. Well, wearing a cross doesn't make you a Christian. Obeying Jesus Christ makes you a Christian. Going to your temple or your church doesn't make you a Christian. It's obeying the words of Jesus Christ. And as we've talked about this whole segment here, people love to think of their church as being holy. And every church thinks they're the right one. And they think deep in their heart that the guy down the block, they are not the right one. They all have this in their heart. See, look at me. I'm on the winning team. You may not be on the winning team, but I'm on the winning team because I go to my church. The temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord. Well, when Gary, the conversations we had, I must say that to a great extent they were one-way conversations. Remember I said of Gary, and I wrote to him one time, you love to pontificate. You love to lecture. Don, what are you doing with my noodles?
Reading the dates on them. I see them in this thing here that look like a garbage thing. And I thought, are they old? And they're not.
No, they're not. There'll be supper here in a few nights. Sorry for that distraction, folks. But Don was looking at a can of soup.
Chicken noodle and beef stew.
Yeah. But anyway, he, I told him, you love to pontificate. You love to lecture. But you don't like to be told that you might be wrong or that you've made a mistake. And it's true. Oh my, sensitive. I told Don, I'm a sports official. If I overreacted every time I heard a negative word, I'd just, I guess, go insane. Because if you're a sports official, there's always someone out there in the crowd giving you a hard time. Well, with time, 61 years, I've learned to the greatest extent just to ignore them. They don't know what they're talking about. But old Gary, he would just love to pound on me. Now I must say, I was letting him get away with it because I was hoping that things might get better instead of getting worse. If I'd have flared up on him and given him my 2 cents worth, he would have become highly offended. Reminds me, Don, way back in my college days in Pasadena, there's a verse, whoever offends one of these little ones, it'd be better that they have a millstone put around their neck. So you'd have some of these self-righteous college students, and they'd get into this discussion or argument. And if they started to lose the argument, they would puff up and say, I'm offended, which means you better stop talking to me or else you're going to end up with a millstone around your neck. Well, that's not what the verse meant. But I always thought, isn't that clever of them? They stuck their foot where it didn't belong, they stuck their nose where it didn't belong, and they're on the losing end of the argument. Everybody knows it. And then they claim, well, you're going to offend me. Well, old Gary, he almost looked to me like someone who was going to, you offend me. And I would say, grow up. You like to dish it out, but you don't like to take it.
You offend yourself.
And so you don't want to be offended if you don't want to have to deal with having it dished on you. Then don't dish it out.
People who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones.
I think somebody famous said that. So I was trying to be gentle and walk carefully and bite my tongue as much as I could. But I pointed out to him and to another member of his family, James chapter 2, verse 10. And it says, for whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. It's like the law was this piece of sculpture. It was a whole unit. And if you broke off a piece of that sculpture, even though maybe it was just the ear of something, you had broken the whole law. Well, I don't know if they ever understood what I was trying to say. But it's the old idea, Don, and you've heard this many times. When people like to point out somebody else's mistakes, you have three fingers pointing back. Which means you need to be careful how you approach that. Now, I shared with Don before we turned the camera on one of the text messages which I sent to a member of this family. And I was quite frustrated when I sent it, and I was quite sad, and I was not in a very good mood. And I used the phrase, "You must be more holy and pure and righteous than Jesus himself." Well, I think that one phrase in that one paragraph was acceptable. But I used it over and over. And for that, upon thinking about it and reflection, I realized that I had gone too far. And I wrote out a text. Don, what did I ask the person?
I forget.
Pardon?
I forget what you
I
asked.
said, would you please forgive me?
Oh, yeah.
I went too far. And I haven't heard from that person. Maybe someday he'll see this video. And I meant that apology. I went too far. Oh, I have a reason for doing it, but I still wasn't correct in doing it. I went too far. So, be very careful, Gary, about accusing other people of sin. Because trust me, there is sin in your closet too. And maybe the greatest sin of all is the sin of self-righteousness and arrogance, pomposity, sanctimoniousness, judgmentalism, and self-righteousness. Well, let's go back to something else. I would like you to turn back to Matthew. Real quickly, in talking to Randy the other day, and we were talking about videos going up on YouTube, and I'd had a discussion with Don, and then Randy became a part of the discussion. I tend to speak a long time on these videos. True or false, Don?
You speak a long time, anytime, Mike.
But on these videos, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, I agree. I accept that.
Sometimes we run out of video cards.
Well, we can always buy some more. And the question was, should my videos be shorter? And Don was sort of that opinion. Your videos should be more like a half hour. Maybe more people will watch them. Now my contention has always been, you can watch it for a half hour, hit the pause button, and then you can go use the bathroom or go make yourself a sandwich or go call the kids in from outside, whatever you need to do. And then you come back to the computer, hit the button, and start listening some more. Well, Randy, he said, when I start watching a video, I don't want to be interrupted. I want it to go from beginning to end. And I said, well, Randy, do you know how long my last video was? And Randy said, oh, 3 hours. I said, yeah. I guess Randy knows I love to talk too. Do you know where Meade County is, Don?
I've heard of it, but I'm not sure where it's at.
Brandenburg, not that far away from Fort Knox. On many occasions, I've jumped in a car with my fellow official, and I have talked all the way there.
And all the way back.
And that's an hour and a half. And
Was that Randy?
oh, Randy's been through that. But I always try to tell interesting stories, and I try to make a theme out of it. I'm a storyteller at heart. Guess who else was a storyteller, Don?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. Most of his teachings were through
Parables.
stories or parables. So Randy actually guessed the length. I thought, that's amazing. He knows me. So then Randy said, I said, well, can we present these videos in maybe 30 minutes and then go to part 2 for 30 minutes and then part 3 for 30 minutes, part 4, 5, 6. So the other day it would have been 6 parts. So that would sort of be in line with Don's idea of being a shorter video. But that's when Randy spoke up and said, I don't want to have all those breaks. I just want to have it complete. He said, you know, we can put both of them up. I said, what? He said, yeah. We can have the whole package from beginning to end, or we can, and right next to it, we can have these parts. 1, part 2, part 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. And I said, I sort of like that. It gives people a choice. I will say that when Luke was putting our videos up on YouTube, if there were 3, you can only get like an hour, and then you get another file inside the camera. I don't understand all that. But Luke would put up on the YouTube, instead of being 1 message, it might be 2 messages or 3 messages, different parts. And his thinking was always, well, you'll get more views in the end. I thought, well, he's doing it. I'm not going to interrupt him. Well, thankfully, it seems to me that here in about a week or so, I will be able to present them however I want to present them. And I sort of like that, the whole thing from beginning to end versus smaller parts. And maybe we'll find out, Don, what people think about it. But I am excited about being in control of those messages.
You should have been at the very beginning.
Well, Don, you're talking to a fellow that was born in the middle of the 20th century.
A lot of us were.
No, not as far back as I was.
You were that
And all of that technical stuff has been a challenge to me. But, you know, there's that old song, I'll get by with a little help from my friends. And so, Randy, I think, and there's another part to this. This series of messages, which I am now involved, I'm going to step on a lot of toes. And quite frankly, I don't know if Luke could have hung in with a lot of my comments. Because I'm just letting it rip. I'm telling people exactly what the Bible is. In times past, I've been delicate. I've been sort of cautious. Well, I'm not going to be that way anymore. I'm just going to be much more blunt. And I'm going to name names. And you've already heard me today name some names of different church groups that I don't think are teaching the truth of God. Now, does that have the ability to piss people off, Don?
Probably so.
Oh, yes, trust me. Very much so. Well, going back to Matthew, the words of Jesus Christ. And again, we're just going to look at some scriptures where Jesus condemns false religion. Let's go to chapter 5, verse 17. And there are several verses there we're going to read. Think not that I am come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but rather to fulfill. That confuses a lot of people. For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot, crossing of the T, or that's the dotting of an I, or one tittle, the crossing of a T, shall in no way pass from the law till all be fulfilled. The Word of God is whole. You different churches don't have the right to say, well, I like this verse, but I don't like that verse. If I say this in public, the people won't like it. They might go home. They'll quit sending tithes. So the preacher ends up repeating the same stuff, the stuff the people want to hear, so that they'll put money in the collection plate. Verse 19. Whosoever, therefore, shall break one of the least commandments, and shall teach men so, one of the smaller commandments, and then shall publicly teach men to do that, he shall be called the least in the kingdom from heaven. But whosoever shall do and teach, the same shall be called great in the kingdom from heaven. And then notice what he says in verse 20. For I say unto you, that except your righteousness shall exceed the righteousness of the scribes and the Pharisees, you shall in no way enter into the kingdom from heaven. Okay, so who were the scribes and the Pharisees? They were the established religion of the day at the time of Jesus Christ. These were the people, as Mr. Ted used to say, sky pilots. Did you ever hear him say that, Don?
Yeah.
They're going to guide you through the sky into heaven. Mr. Ted had a sharp, critical, sarcastic tongue at times. I loved it. But then times Mr. Ted would say, oh, I've been too sarcastic all my life. I said, no, I love it. I remember one time he made a telecast, Don. I was out there in Southern California. This was the beginning of the women's liberation movement.
Mm-hmm. And
they had some film footage.
Oh, I remember that one. That's one you can't forget.
Oh, it was beautiful. Of a rally they were having somewhere in the Los Angeles area. And a woman, she wasn't very pleasant looking. She wasn't very shapely looking. And she had this horrible screeching voice. And she says, I think she's holding her bra and is going to light it on fire. I don't know what that proved. I really don't understand that. What does burning the flag prove? You just wasted a bunch of money. But she screeched out, we want abortions! And we want them now! Sound like a cat with its tail caught in something. And they froze the camera with her face all, and then her image starts to fade away, and then Mr. Ted's image starts to come up. And Mr. Ted looked into the camera and said, as though she would ever need one? I loved it. Here, this is many years later, and I still love it. Well, I mentioned that to him one time. He says, oh, I got too sarcastic back then. Well, Mr. Ted, at times your sarcasm was very entertaining. We want abortions. We want them now. Oh my, wouldn't you hate to have to be around that voice very long? But the scribes and the Pharisees were the established religious leaders of that day. They represented the priests and the pastors and the prophets that we see in the churches of today. And one consistent theme that Jesus said about those people is that they were hypocrites. And chapter 23 is just dedicated to Jesus just pounding on them for their hypocrisy. We'll get around to that verse. It'll take a while, but we'll get there. Notice verse 43. What I'm saying is, nothing's changed in 2,000 years. We still have Pharisees, self-righteous Pharisees, who are among us, who are leaders of different religious movements. And it's not just one denomination. They're all filled with hypocrisy. And yet people dutifully, every week, go and sit at their feet and hear what they have to say. Well, Gary, you will not see me among that group. Thanks for the invitation, but no thank you. Verse 43. You have heard that it has been said, thou shalt love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, and do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. He says in verse 44, but I say unto you, love your enemies, bless them that curse you, do good to them that hate you, and pray for them which deceitfully use you and persecute you. And yet, in most of these churches, and I said this last week, and I've thought it for a long time, they will love you as long as you are in their group and you're following them and you're respectful to them. But if you dare speak up and criticize some of their teaching, they will just pounce on you like angry, hungry wolves. They will embarrass you. They will kick you out of the church, make a big, ugly scene of doing it. Don, I saw things like that back in Worldwide. And I remember thinking, even then, I just don't think this is right. I don't think this is right. I eventually had to leave that organization because I did not agree with how they conducted themselves. Just way too judgmental, way too pompous, arrogant, sanctimonious, filled with self-righteousness. You think about the woman taken in adultery, thrown down in front of the feet of Jesus. Did he lecture her? Did he scold her? Did he embarrass her? Did he say, stone her to death? That's what they wanted him to say. Jesus did just the opposite. He very quietly, down in the sand, wrote out some of their sins and hypocrisies. And one by one, they took a look at what he was writing and said, oops, I think it's time for me to go home. And they all did. He shamed every one of them. And then he said to the woman, Woman, where are your accusers? She said, well, they've all gone. And he said, I don't accuse you. I don't judge you. And his only advice was, go and sin no more. There was kindness in what Jesus said. There was kindness and empathy in how he dealt with her. Jesus showed us the correct example. But human beings, they muck it up all the time. Going back to that passage, verse 45. I need to adjust my light here just a bit. There's so much reflection, Don, that I'm having a hard time reading it. I'm just going to move it some. For he may be, verse 45, that he may be the children of your Father which is in heaven. For he makes his sun to rise upon the evil and the good, and he sends rain on the just and the unjust. Verse 46, for if you love them which love you, what reward have you? What special thing have you done? Do not even the publicans do that? Verse 47, if you salute your brothers only, what do you more than others? Do not even the publicans so? Verse 48, but be you therefore perfect. The word perfect there means spiritually mature. Basically, he's saying, grow up. Be you therefore spiritually mature, even as your Father, which is in heaven, is perfect or spiritually mature. A lot of good stuff in these chapters 5, 6, and 7. It's called the Sermon on the Mount. If we could just live by this, oh, we'd have such a better world to live in. Let's turn to chapter 6. And it says, to begin with verse 1, take heed that you do your alms before men to be seen of them. Otherwise you have no reward from your Father which is in heaven. Therefore, when you do your alms, good deeds, just think of that as being good deeds. Do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogue. He's referring to the Pharisees. And in the streets, that they may have the glory of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. A lot of religious people, not all, but a lot of so-called religious people want to be recognized for the good things which they have done. And they're not doing something good to actually help the people who need some help. They're doing it to bring attention to themselves, to be seen of men. And you think about all the silly costumes religious people wear. Some of their funny looking little hats and their robes, and some with their crosses around their neck, and it just goes on and on and on. They're not trying to impress God the Father. They're trying to impress fellow human beings. Well, if you're doing something to impress another human being, you're not serving God. He goes on to say, but when you do your good deeds, let not your left hand know what the right hand is doing. Let your good deeds, that your good deeds may be in secret, and your Father, which sees in secret himself, shall reward you openly. Verse 5, and when you pray, you shall not be as the hypocrites are, for they love to pray, standing in the synagogues, the churches, and also in the corners of the streets, that they may be seen of men. Verily I say unto you, they have their rewards. You know, Don, I don't think I told you this. When Gary and I met at Applebee's, guess what he insisted upon doing?
Praying.
And I think there's this need in Gary's part to be seen as holy, righteous, pure. Can you not just pray over your food inside your mind and no one knows that you're doing it? But he wanted to be seen as though he was being holy. And then he proceeded at times to be very unholy towards me, ungracious, unmerciful, non-forgiving. I'll give this to Gary. He's consistent. And I just wonder how much of that has rubbed off on another member of his family. That's the part that concerns me. Verse 6, but when you pray, enter into the closet, and when you have shut the door, so basically you're in secret, pray to the Father which is in secret, and your Father which is in secret shall reward you openly. But when you pray, use not vain repetitions, as the heathen do, for they think that they shall be heard for their much speaking. What do the Catholics do all the time, Don?
The little gesture and pray.
They
bow
have
down
their
statue.
rosary,
Yeah.
and with every bead, I think it's Hail Mary, full of grace, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Hail Mary, full of grace, blah, 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 blah.
You hear it on the radio, the Catholic channel. Oh, gosh.
And you think, why are you praying to Mary? But they'll tell you, we're not praying to Mary. Well, yes, you do.
Yeah, they admit it. I heard them say they pray to Mary, and they pray to angels.
Oh, okay,
angels.
I got to get, before the clock runs out on me here.
What clock?
My watch.
You got a watch?
Yes, I do. I can actually tell time.
Oh.
Verse 8, be you not therefore like unto them, for your Father knows what things you need of before you even ask them. And that's comforting to know. So I just have a couple of minutes here. This is the end of part 2 in this series. I have no idea how long this series is going to go on. I have literally dozens and dozens and scores of notes and scriptures that I want to cover. All of them are explaining from the Bible what we're supposed to do and what Jesus thinks of false religion and other writers of the Bible and false ideas. And just what we read contradicts so much of the cultures of these other churches. Well, anyway, I love all of you. I hope you're interested in what I have to say. In truth, if just one of you listens to these messages and your life is improved, I'm thankful. I'm very, very thankful. So until next week, goodbye, my friends.